All right, Sam. So tell me about your favorite emails that you get from like a brand or a company.
Yeah. So there's a couple of, obviously, when it comes to emails, there's a lot of different emails. There's spam, there's retailers, there's news outlets. But I'd say my favorite right now, a couple of different examples. Chubby's has a great email campaign. They're funny. There's a wide variety of things that they cover, which I think is hilarious. Like, for instance, when they release a new product or a new pair of shorts, they'll obviously feature that in an email.
Yep.
They send out daily emails, so that's their frequency is pretty much daily, except on weekends. But what's really nice about them as well is sometimes they send out emails for just the heck of it, just for it to be funny, And so sometimes it'll just be like a link to a Creed video, like something ridiculous, and you're just like, what was the point of this? And it's like just some ridiculous song, but it's hilarious, and they know their audience, and they know their audience is open to that sort of humor. So I think they do that great. Another couple of emails that I subscribe to are much more media and news related. The Hustle is a media outlet. They send out daily emails with basically worldly stories, so top stories across the world on business news, basically anything that's going on. The Dig is also a newsletter, a daily email outlet, media outlet that I subscribe to. Same thing. Just relevant news, and they just curate internet content and put it in front of you in a really, really good way. I think they do it really, really well. They know their audience, they put the relevant information in front of them, and that's the whole purpose of their email. So those are some of my favorite that I subscribe to and why I like them so much.
Yeah, I would say my favorite thing that I can remember from the Chubby's email, which is one of those. I never was planning on buying any Chubbies, and then I heard you guys talk about how funny they were, and I went subscribed, and lo and behold, I now own a pair of American flag Chubby swimsuits. But one of my favorite things from their emails was usually at the bottom it says like, oh, you can follow Chubbies on Facebook, Chubbies on Twitter. So it's like Chubbies on Facebook, you click the link, Chubbies on Twitter, click the link. Chubby's on a TI-83 calculator, and it literally just had the logo of Chubby's on the actual calculator. When you click on it, I'm sure it just went to the website, but it was so funny.
No, I know what you're talking about, and it went to a Creed video.
Oh, that might have been it.
Yeah.
That might have been it.
I love it. Yeah, but it's a great example of just using emails for. They know their culture, they know their brand, they know their voice, and they know their audience.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do.
Yeah. So now let's get into actually about email marketing. What about it is it different than in any other normal digital tactic versus a remarketing or an audience campaign or SEM campaign?
Yeah. The reason my biggest selling point for email is simply this. Emails are still the number one type of communication that customers are willing to engage with businesses. So people in today's society view making a phone call a higher commitment than sending an email, if that makes sense. So people will send an email and asking a question with almost little to no hesitation. But to schedule a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, or to make a phone call, they're like, no, that's too much. I'm not committed to something like that. So they're very open to opening the lines of communication through an email. So when I talk about email marketing, it's basically for the purpose of opening that line of communication because people are most accepting in that sort of communication. So that's my biggest selling point for email marketing is because people are, they'll jump to advertising, online advertising, they'll jump to social media and people use the argument, oh, you need to be where your audience is. You need to, they're on social media, talk to them on social media. They're online, send them advertisements online. But everyone has an email address. Everyone in today's world has an email address. And all it is utilizing email marketing is utilizing another form of communication and another distribution channel for you to put your information in front of people. And so that's why I think it's a really, really valuable tactic that people, if they have a marketing campaign, should in some way incorporate emails into that campaign.
Yeah, and I definitely, with all the updates that are happening to the Facebook algorithm, and your organic reach, I see email becoming even more valuable just because not necessarily you don't have to put much money towards email marketing versus now posting on Facebook where you get the audience. You can send an email. Obviously, it costs money to have an actual CRM, but it's a better way to engage your audience. That's the way I see it going.
Yep, it's all about the communication. It's all about putting relevant information in front of your audience. And if you're able to get into their inbox, that is just a prime spot to have a conversation. People recognize their inbox as a place to communicate. You know, they'll go on Facebook or they'll go on social media to maybe search, you know, to just see what's going on. You know, they'll go to Google to literally get their questions answered. But when somebody is in their inbox, it's a kind of a, you know, this is my home. This is my online home type situation, and this is where I feel comfortable having conversations with people. So that's another reason why I think messenger apps are becoming huge, because people recognize that in Messenger is where I'm going to have communication. I'm going to have conversations. That's where people feel with their inbox right now. I feel comfortable having communications here. So for someone to let you into their inbox, it's saying I'm allowing you to communicate with me. And so that's an online version of a face-to-face conversation.
Yeah. So let's get back to the CRM email marketing. What is the difference? First, what does CRM stand for? And what is the difference between a CRM and email marketing as a whole?
Sure. So very different things. In my mind, very, very different things. So CRM stands for a customer relationship management tool. That's what a CRM is. And for the whole purpose of it is, I think a CRM is something that every business needs, especially if you have multiple people within a business. No matter how big your business is, whether you have 2 employees or 200 employees, a CRM is going to it's basically an online version of a Rolodex in its most simplest form. I'm in no way comparing it to an old Rolodex where people had the contact information, business cards, that stuff. But it's a way to manually have online that version of information, but so much more. So with an integrated CRM, you have the ability to manage the conversations you have with customers. A lot of CRMs have built-in pipelines, so you can manage the progress that you make with customers. So whether it's the first communication you have with a potential customer to the last communication you have to them before maybe they sign a proposal, you can monitor that progress in stages. A CRM also usually will integrate with your website. So a lot of times if you have contact forms on your website, or you have lead generation tools on your website, when people fill out those forms, they will automatically be placed into your CRM, so it takes away that manual process. So now we're getting into the automated responses, and a lot of CRMs have that capability. Some CRMs have email marketing capabilities. Not all of them do, but some of them do. So when we talk about why they're two different things, I think this is where it gets a little fuzzy, because CRMs, even though they're able to send out email communication, does not mean that it's email marketing. For instance, if somebody downloads, say, a case study on a website, what may happen built in a CRM is that case study is delivered to them in a PDF form. They get sent an email maybe a couple of days later just asking them if they like that sort of information, and then maybe they reply to it, maybe they don't. A CRM probably has the ability to gauge that response, whether or not they engaged with that email or not, potentially give them a score, which is information to the sales team to say, okay, this person is engaged, maybe I can reach out to them personally, or no, they're not. Let's just keep sending them information to maybe encourage them to act in the future. That's all a CRM. That's all automated responses, and that's great. That's efficient use of people's time. It takes away from the manual process of sending out emails. All that's automated, so there's no touching of the management or the sales team or anything like that. Email marketing, on the other hand, is like a marketing campaign. So we have created emails. Each email is supposed to perform a specific action or to encourage someone to take a specific sort of action. And all that is planned and scheduled out in advance. And so that's really how the two are different, but it does get a little fuzzy right in the middle because we're both talking about sending emails. So it's fuzzy, but they are two different things.
Gotcha. So then now for the last thing, let's get into how to write a good email? What are some of the best practices that you've found?
Yeah, well, the first thing that you have to realize is that emails are in parts. So an email itself is consistent with a few different parts. The most, I think, important and should not be overlooked part of an email is the subject line. And what I often hear people say is, why aren't people opening my emails? Or what they often ask is, what's wrong with my email? Or how can I improve my email to get more opens? And what I always say is, it's not your email. If you're talking about open rates, it's not your email that you need to be looking about. It's not the content of your email. It's the subject line that you need to be looking at. Because when it comes to sending emails, when they show up in somebody's inbox, they're not going to see the content of your email. They're going to see the subject line. And so those few short words are all you have to get an open. And so when it comes to best practices on how to write a good email, the number one thing is write a good subject line. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of best practices, and people have done a ton of research on what makes up a good subject line. And all you need to do is, just do a Google search and you can find all of that information. But some of the top things are: keep it short, doesn't need to be too long. Be very clear on what people can expect to find in the email, so almost like a little preview. A lot of times people like to use action verbs at the beginning of subject lines, so start or check out, or to entice them to continue to open the email. Questions have a good open rate, and just being honest in your subject lines as well. So that's always really helpful. So check with your subject line and write a good subject line. Do testing to make sure that you know what subject lines are good, which ones are bad. And then when it comes to the content of your emails, know your audience. Like we talked about, the difference between a Chubby's email and like a news media email are very, very different. So you need to understand what your audience deems as valuable. And maybe they might just be interested in the blogs that you write. So if that's the case, to just provide links to the blogs and say, here's some of our recent information, check it out if you would like. A lot of times people think that the emails need to be beautiful and they need to have tons of pictures and these pieces of artwork and take hours and hours and hours to pay a graphic designer to, put together all this thing. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it might be, but a lot of times people might respond better to just a plain text version of an email that says, hey, this is a recent update in the Facebook algorithm. Just wanted to let you know that this is how things are working now. If you have any questions or would like to talk about the Facebook algorithm, contact me and let me know. Sometimes an email like that is going to get great open rate. You might get replies to that email. People might forward it along. So you just need to be open to testing out different forms of email and just being open to that, and then always responding to emails quickly and efficiently. So those are some really quick best practices, but when it comes to writing emails, the number one thing it comes down to is knowing your audience and what sort of information they deem as valuable and giving that to them. So that's my advice.
Yeah, those are some good tips. And one thing that is just pretty common in all of marketing and advertising is testing. Is you're not going to know, like, yeah, there's some industry standards of, usually this does the best, but maybe for your specific audience or your specific product, it's better to do it a different way, or at least you don't know how it's going to go until you actually test.
Yeah. Nope, I totally agree. And that's, people probably get sick of hearing it, but it's the truth. If you want to figure out what's best for you, you need to test. And the one thing that I will say about testing is you need to be open to testing different elements that you maybe wouldn't have considered before. Testing out different audiences that you maybe didn't think was your audience. Because sometimes people can get into testing an audience that's so similar, just different on little tiny things that they're practically the same thing. Every once in a while, try to throw in a different element that maybe you didn't think was your audience at all. And you might be surprised to find out the results. You might be justified in saying like, yep, absolutely, knew that wasn't my audience. Now I know for sure. But sometimes you might be into the fact that, or you might find out that, wow, this is an audience that I would have never tapped into unless I would have, taken this step and tried to do something different. So always be willing to make that test.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some great tips, Sam.
Oh, thanks.
Well, thanks again for everyone listening. I am Luke, joined by Sam here. Feel free to check out our YouTube videos. This will eventually be uploaded to YouTube, but with all of our other 10 at 10 videos.